Hi everyone, this video is about my experience trying to improve trans and non-binary inclusion in my workplace. And I'm also going to offer some more general advice that can be used to improve inclusion in any workplace and for lots of different groups. I work in a large university in the UK, and in January 2020 I decided I wanted to come out as trans masculine at work. I'd assumed this would be a fairly straightforward process. My workplace seemed very inclusive. They said all the right things and we all had equality training, so I thought it would just be a case of finding out what the process for coming out was. I was wrong about that. I couldn't find any official guidance on how to come out, so I decided that I may as well document how I did it so future trans people wouldn't have to start from scratch. I began writing a kind of Trans 101 document that outlined what terms like trans and non-binary mean, the difference between sex and gender, how to use different pronouns, just the absolute basics. And I figured that most people aren't actively transphobic, but often people feel uncomfortable discussing gender because they're worried about saying the wrong thing. So the best thing I could do was tell them how to talk about these topics. And I also thought that most people who did think they were anti-trans only felt that way because they didn't know any trans people, and the idea in their head is very different from the reality. So if I could write something that shows the common ground and help cis people understand something of the trans experience, that would build some bridges. I did eventually find the trans inclusion and support documents for my university, and reading through them at first they seemed kind of okay. However, they did read as a long list of "do not do this" and "this is illegal," and it made it sound like every interaction with a trans person could potentially get you fired or even arrested. They also did not really tell me how to come out. It said to just speak to my line manager, but as a line manager myself, I knew we weren't given any training on how to handle this. And because of that, I decided my little corner of the uni could still use my document, which was much more about bridge building than threats and what not to do. The equality group for my little area of the uni loved the document I'd written, and they just asked me to run it by the faculty head of equality, inclusion and diversity just to get the final okay before they adopted it as an official document. So I had a meeting with a person whose only job is to improve equality, inclusion and diversity in my faculty. And she said, absolutely not. She also didn't know how to use the word non-binary in a sentence, and she had some very conservative ideas about how much any minority group should be accommodated. And that's not conservative by my loony lefty standards, that's by anyone's standards. So I went above her head to the team that managed equality for the entire university. I knew we needed this document because a colleague was being misgendered and dead named on a daily basis, and I, as a baby trans person, still didn't have a clear idea of how to come out. And to be clear, this is not the normal way of things. I am very low down on the totem pole, and I was stepping way out of my lane and out of my comfort zone. But this work needed to be done. Thankfully, the person in charge of LGBT issues was currently rewriting the trans inclusion and support documents, and she has been fantastic. She was very open to feedback and is incorporating my document into the official university guidance. However, I can't say this is a happy ending because the guidance needed such huge revisions that it's now 4 months overdue at the time of recording. Updating the text doesn't take that long, so why is it so overdue? Well, the colleague I mentioned earlier started asking why their dead name was appearing on university systems and outing them to colleagues. And you'd think this would be a really easy fix. Just change their name in one field on the central database and that'll solve the problem. But it turns out that the computer systems are so complex and archaic that after 4 months of investigation, they're still not entirely sure how to remove it completely. And I'm mentioning this here because the guidance document I found very confidently stated that if you complete a change of name form, all of your records will be updated. And that sounds reasonable, but it obviously hadn't been tested. And this is the first piece of advice I'd give to anyone wanting to do this work in their own workplaces. Just because something sounds straightforward doesn't mean it will be, and every process has to be tested to make sure it works. That's a good segue into the bits of advice I'd offer to others. So, have a clear vision of what you want to achieve and plan it out if possible. What do you want to do? How are you going to do it? What skills do you have? What do you need to learn? What tools are available? A plan will show you exactly what you need to do. It's harder to say no to work that's already been done. If I'd approached our local team with my idea before I'd written anything, I would either have been told no, or we would still be writing it collaboratively 7 months later. Because I went with a finished piece of work, it was much easier to get it approved. And it's also often better to ask for forgiveness for doing something than it is to ask for permission, especially if what you're doing is actively improving your workplace. I just want to acknowledge that this isn't always possible. Not everyone has quiet periods where they can do this work alongside their normal tasks. But if you can even just write out a plan or a list of who should be involved, even that will make it more likely to get the go-ahead than going empty-handed. This is hard. This presentation has been a very, very brief outline of what has been a long and grueling process. Pleading with cis people to take your existence seriously is awful, and I don't recommend it to anyone. And it is okay not to do this work if you don't want to, and it is okay to stop partway through if you can't carry on. Build your community. Do not ever try and do this work alone. Your community is here for you. We want to support you and we want to help. Even if you think that you'll be fine going in alone, I really implore you to reach out anyway. Speaking to people who understand you after spending all day speaking to those who don't or don't want to understand is incredibly important. This is something I've learned the hard way. Please don't make the mistakes I did trying to do this alone. Don't trust the structures that are already in place, especially if they're part of HR. HR exists to protect your employers from you, not the other way around. Equally, diversity and equality teams often just exist for PR reasons, and they can take quite badly to being called out when they're not doing what you'd expect them to do. You could lose your job. After 4 years and 2 promotions, my otherwise excellent work now is not satisfactory, and I have destroyed any chance of being promoted within the university. I've been nothing but polite and understanding in all of my interactions with HR and upper management, but I'm still being punished for suggesting change. My colleague, who pointed out problems and asked for them to be fixed, has had their probation period extended, has been treated terribly by management, and is almost certainly going to have to find a new job. Please consider this carefully. How easy is it to find a new job as an openly trans or non-binary person? Is that something you're willing to do? This experience for me has been really difficult, and I've spent a lot of this video trying to convince you not to do this. So why am I even talking at all? This work needs to be done to protect minorities and vulnerable groups, and somebody needs to do it. The most important thing I've learned from this is that if we fight hard enough, we will win. We are on the right side of history, and that is the message I'd like to leave you with. If we fight hard enough, we will win. I'll link the document I've written and some other useful resources in the doobly-doo. Thank you, and I hope you all have a really great day.